What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbert here with Rob Mazaika, taking a look at value plays and some mid-range options for tonight's five-game slate. Quite a bit of injury news to kind of break down here as we go throughout the day. But overall, a relatively decent five-game slate. All these team totals are over 100.
Yeah, every game's over 200 points. Like you said, there's some injury news. Darren Williams is going to be out tonight. Tyler Johnson is probable. Kevin Love is questionable. I think he's more on a doubtful side, though. And then we got guys like Evan Fournier, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, JaMychal Green, who really you don't think they would have much of an impact, but they will tonight.
Yeah, definitely. You look at some of those guys, they create a little bit more minutes for elsewhere. And jumping in kind of the first game here, or first position point guard. Looking at top guys, there are some guys that are a little bit more expensive, but that mid-range is kind of really where I'm looking tonight.
Same here. It's a short slate. It's only a 5-game slate, so you're really going to have to, hit the nuts to do anything significant. Most people, they're going to pay up for Kyrie Irving, I think, with Kevin Love probably out, which isn't a bad play, but he's 8,600, and there's just some better options that are cheaper.
Yeah, I like Goran Dragic is my favorite option on tonight's slate. A little bit cheaper, great matchup against Brooklyn. Obviously coming off a big game. I know Whiteside was out that last one, or limited in that last one, but Dragic has just kind of been a guy who's been really consistent.
I like Dragic too up until the news with Tyler Johnson being probable now. That takes a hit to Dragic, and at his price tag now at 7,800 on FanDuel, with the production that Tyler Johnson is going to take away from him, it might hurt him a little bit. I like Mike Conley for only 300 less, though. He's playing Phoenix. He's going to come in a lot lower owned. Phoenix, they're not much of a better matchup than Brooklyn. But Conley's consistent. He's going to get you at least 35 fantasy points, and he's got 50-point upside.
It definitely does. And I think, I'm kind of curious with GPPs for Ricky Rubio, Elfrid Payton. Basically, that game in general, I feel like it features a lot of guys that you can kind of pivot to.
Yeah, that game could be an interesting one. You don't know what team we're going to get from Orlando. It could be a blowout, or it could be a 120, 110 shootout. You just never know.
Yeah, Elfrid Payton had a decent game against him last time out. Only played 26 minutes, yet scored, 35 DK points. I don't mind him. I still think there are better options in cash games. But overall, there is that GPP upside.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. He's a total tournament play for me, just always with the volatility he brings. He's gotten me 5 points. He's gotten me 50 points before, but that's what I want in tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. That's what kind of drops the lower ownership. A guy that I'm on quite a bit, diving deeper in, Reggie Jackson. I really like his price tag on DK, 6,300. He's not expensive on FanDuel either, just 66, but a decent matchup against Isaiah Thomas, higher usage. And this is a guy who, over 30 DK points in 6 of the last 10.
I like him too. This game, it could end up being the highest scoring game of the night. It's projected second right behind the Miami-Brooklyn game. But Reggie Jackson, he has a nice matchup. Isaiah Thomas, he's a decent defender, but Jackson and Drummond doing that pick and roll in this game might be a nice little stack.
Yeah, definitely. I'm maybe looking at those guys as kind of the primary options. Outside of that, we kind of dropped down. I think Yogi Ferrell is probably the guy that we'll talk about the most here. Played 35 minutes last time out in a tougher than usual matchup. Gets a Cleveland backcourt that actually allows a surprisingly a good amount of fantasy points to point guards.
Yeah, Irving, he's really not the best defender. Yogi Ferrell, he's on the second day of his 10-day contract with Dallas. He started yesterday against San Antonio and got 35 minutes. That's a lot of minutes for a guy on a 10-day contract, but with their weak backcourt, someone's going to have to play back there, and Yogi Ferrell's minimum price on FanDuel, and you really don't need much for him.
No, you really don't. If he puts up a similar line than he does last night, I'm completely fine with that. I'm not saying he's a must-play value, but he's a guy that really does open up a lot of salary.
Yeah, if you could do a total stars and scrubs with him, you could fit him and Seth Curry in, and you could basically get anyone you want.
Yeah, definitely. Outside of that, Isaiah Thomas, Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe is obviously a fave for me tonight at that price tag and that matchup. Isaiah Thomas is probably the pay up that I might look to use a little bit of exposure to.
Thomas is my pay up option too. I suggested him in the GPP article. His ownership might be a little higher than I want, but he's just a guy who could score. He honestly could score 50 real points in this game at the way he's playing right now. He's averaged about 33 actual points in the month of January. He leads the league in fourth quarter scoring. It's just a really good spot for him.
Yeah, I mean he's that offensive weapon that you can kind of continuously use. Um, if Avery Bradley somehow plays tonight, I'm probably going to be off of that backcourt for a little bit.
Same here.
So moving over to shooting guard, and really there's no extreme pay up option. I mean basically Devin Booker, Deion Waiters are your more expensive guys. If I'm picking the two, it's definitely going to be Waiters, but Tyler Johnson does kind of create a little bit of a cloudiness in that backcourt now.
Yeah, Tyler Johnson just really screwed things up for the slate in that Miami backcourt. But I still think Waiters is going to bring in heavy ownership, even with Johnson playing. And we aren't sure how much he's going to play. Tyler Johnson, his first game back in a while. So Waiters, it's a good matchup. The Nets, they bleed fantasy points. This game, it should stay close. It's going to be really high scoring. And they've been really relying on him to score lately.
Yeah, they have it. I mean, the thing with him, he can play two, he can play the three as well. It kind of adds to his minutes should stay relatively safe. Wayne Ellington though might take a little bit of a hit now too.
Yeah, I really liked Wayne Ellington going into tonight. He over 20 fantasy points in 6 out of the last 7 games, but Tyler Johnson really messes things up with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we get the Dallas backcourt. Wesley Matthews, Seth Curry are both in play for me. Wes Matthews coming off a really strong game, finally picked up a little bit of his peripheral stats, and because of the injury, he's been pretty cheap too.
Yeah, he has been. And then Seth Curry, not Steph, Seth. He had 24 and 10 yesterday against the Spurs, which is probably one of his best games of his career. Cleveland, they're an okay matchup for him, but I mean, like we said earlier with Yogi Ferrell, someone's going to have to pick up these minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And you were looking at KCP, I know that. And Boston's been kind of struggling against shooting guards here of late.
Yeah, KCP, his price is way down on FanDuel. He's only 5,400 on there. I was playing him back when he was about 5,900, 6K. So I'm okay with using him in tournaments based on his dependency on his shot. Because in these last 3 games, he had 1 point against the Warriors. Granted, he only played 3 minutes, but 34 points against the King in 36 minutes, and then 7 points in 35 minutes against the Heat. So that's what you can get from him. But he's a tournament play for me.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at him, I mean, he hasn't been bad against Boston in his career. And, if he can pick up a couple extra steals where we know that upside's there, that kind of also adds to that floor.
Yeah, and like I said before, this game, it should be content to be the highest scoring of the night.
Yeah, I think so. I like it quite a bit. Outside of that, I mean, I didn't really have too much of shooting guard just because it is a rather weak slate.
Yeah, I just have 2 guys at the bottom. If Al Horford's out, I have a little bit of interest in Jaylen Brown. He's been playing really well last 2 games once he started getting about 28 minutes. His price is only 3,900 on FanDuel, so he's cheap on both sites, and it's not a bad spot for him. Like I said, high-scoring game. And then one more guy is Sean Kilpatrick. He's pretty volatile because you can never guess those minutes because sometimes he'll play 30, sometimes he'll play 20, but he's had over 27 fantasy points in 3 of his last 5 games. And in a matchup against the Heat, he could definitely hit that again if he gets the minutes.
Yeah, definitely could. I mean, I think that Brooklyn team, I'm really – Kilpatrick is a good tournament guy because a lot of people are going to be off him just because of that volatility that you mentioned. But I do think he has the most upside out of that group.
Yeah, he's the GPP pivot to Seth Curry because he's only 200 cheaper.
Yeah. Small forward tonight. Obviously, I think LeBron kind of takes the cake. We were discussing him, better play on DraftKings. The turnovers have really killed that ceiling over on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's the type of player who really just plays to win in the regular season. He doesn't really try to dominate like he does in the playoffs. He's 10,500 on FanDuel, 10K on DraftKings. I mean, he's probably the safest bet for 50 points in the slate, though.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I don't mind building around him tonight. But, I mean, I do look, and the price is a little bit higher. I like some of the small forward options. I mean, I don't mind Wiggins. I don't mind using Crowder. I like Crowder more if Bradley's out. We've just seen his production go up quite a bit since then. If Bradley's back, I still don't mind him just because it is a weaker slate. But there are a lot of guys that are kind of questionable in that range and maybe just off the table as the day goes on.
Yeah, I'm only going to use Crowder if both Horford and Bradley are out. We expect Bradley to be out. It's just Horford I'm not sure about yet. But his price is just getting too high for me to use at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't mind him on FanDuel. 6,300 is still not that bad, especially just because I don't feel for a lot of options below. I mean, I know on DK you do have a couple guys that are small forward eligible, but overall, I mean, I'm not really in Marcus Morris, Aaron Gordon, all that much. I know PJ Tucker's in a tougher than usual spot, but probably him and LeVert are probably your value options.
Yeah, I think the same here. LeVert, it depends on Rondé Hollis Jefferson. If Hollis Jefferson's out again, Levert and Bogdanovich both get big bumps. But if Hollis Jefferson's in, he's probably going to take away minutes and usage from both these guys, and I'd probably just stay away altogether. But PJ Tucker has been a player who's been getting over 30 minutes in the last 5 games. It's a tough matchup, but it's a cheap price, and with those minutes, he should almost hit his value, if not hit more.
Yeah, definitely. And Aaron Gordon has a questionable tag tonight. I mean, if he's out, I don't mind looking at some Jeff Green. Definitely more of a tournament play. He's still volatile for me, but if he's going to pick up, 30 minutes at his price, I don't mind him.
I don't mind him either. Yeah, he's only 3,700 on FanDuel, so that's not bad.
Yeah, same thing on DK. And, I feel like if the mints are going to be there, he might kind of outtake Levert and kind of push more into a Tucker range.
Yep.
So, anyone else at small forward that you like?
That's all I had.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty limited there.
Yep.
Power forward, Kevin Love didn't travel to Dallas, so he's going to be out tonight. And that really there's no expensive power forwards to roll with. I mean, Towns is power forward eligible, which you can use him on DraftKings. But outside of that, it's basically just a mid-range.
Yeah, and FanDuel, this position sucks. I want the switcheroo with the centers on this position today. Jeez, I don't even want one of them, and we got to play 2 of them. But I guess Zach Randolph's going to be the chalk, especially if JaMychal Green's out, and I'm okay with eating that, I guess.
Yeah, I think you'll have to. I mean, I don't mind him. James Johnson's a guy who I don't mind either. I know he did have a down game against Brooklyn, but, he's a guy who usually should see 25-plus minutes and is a pretty good peripheral player.
Yeah, Brooklyn, you know how they are. They just bleed fantasy points. A little cheaper, we got the gorgeous Dong, Gorgie Jang. He's 5,800. I think he's actually going to be the most popular guy in the slate just because you know what you're going to get out of him. It's going to be between 25 and 35 fantasy points. So he's a safe cash game play.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't mind him. I mean, just because there really isn't a lot to work with. Serge Ibaka is probably my favorite pivot of the group. I think people are going to be away from him just because, one, it's not a glaring great matchup. You look at him, he hasn't been anything great of late, but there is that block upside, his defensive presence. If you can kind of get the scoring going, I mean, if I can get 35 out of him, I really don't mind him at that price tag.
I don't mind him either. He's tournament only for me because, he had that 7 the other night in a dream matchup against Boston, and it really hurt me. But that recency bias, you got to get by it. With Gordon out, he becomes a really good play, but GPP only just because he's volatile.
Yeah, it definitely is. And then if Horford's out, I mean, we're looking at basically Olnick, Amir Johnson is kind of the guys that you can take stabs at.
And Drepko too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not the greatest matchup in the world, but I don't mind them just because they are cheap and they are going to have to produce in this type of matchup.
Yeah, they're going to need some bigs to play. It's just I think Drummond's going to draw a lot of fouls in this one, so there's going to be one or two of these guys that are going to get in foul trouble. So it's really just taking a shot in the dark on picking which one that's not going to get in foul trouble.
And if that's the case, I'm probably going to lean with the more experienced Amir Johnson. Olnick is a guy who is very foul prone at times.
Oh, yeah. And then the one more guy, power forward, way down there, Channing Frye. He's going to come in probably very popular with Kevin Love out. I think he's a good tournament fade.
I think he is too. A lot of people are going to be looking at that. I kind of feel like the Cavs, I don't know. I mean, there is a decent ceiling with LeBron, but overall, I think it's the one that you can fade and kind of go towards some other games because their ownership is going to be pretty high, and they might eat into each other a little bit.
Yeah, and Dallas, they play at a slow pace, and Cleveland doesn't play that fast either. This game, it's probably going to be the lowest scoring of the night, in my opinion. Vegas, they think it too. They agree with me. But Channing Frye, he's always a chalk when Kevin Love is out, and I never understand it because we've only seen it's really tough for him to hit his upside if he's not just hitting all these threes.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, at times we've seen LeBron shift over to the 4, and basically those guys become obsolete.
Yep.
That's pretty much it for me. I mean, Detroit's power forwards, Tobias Harris, John Lure in a really good spot. I don't mind them for a source of value just because they should eat up some rebounds and should be, bigs against Boston, something where you're looking to get a lot of fantasy points from.
Yeah, if I had to choose, I would choose Lure just because he's the type of player that Boston struggles to defend on the perimeter.
Yeah, I don't mind him, especially at a cheaper price tag as well.
Yep.
Moving over to center, for me, I mean, Andre Drummond's my favorite guy, just points per dollar wise. Really like that price tag on DK, 7,700. I don't mind Towns, obviously, but I think I'm going to be saving a little bit of cash here.
Yeah, Drummond, he's had some huge games against Boston in his career. Bigs against Boston, it's a thing, and you could just ride it tonight.
Yeah, definitely could. Hassan Whiteside, I was all over him against Brooklyn last time out. I mean, I still think he's a viable GPP play, but he might not be 100% healthy.
Yeah, that concerns me. His price is 8,900 also, but
Yeah.
the matchup's just it's the perfect matchup for him. We talked about it last time. It's just he's been volatile. He's been playing hurt. He's been playing bad. It's tough, but he's tournament only for me because he honestly has like 70-point upside. If you can get what 25 and 25 against Brooklyn, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's how bad Brooklyn is.
Yeah, I mean, they're horrible rebounding. Block shot upside's always there. He's definitely more of a DK tournament guy just because he's 7,500. I feel like that range in general, like Marcus Gasol, I'm not really looking at him on FanDuel, but 7,800 on DK, I'm okay with. And really, I mean, that range of cheap guys you can certainly look towards.
Yeah, there's some cheaper guys. We touched on Olynyk before. Tristan Thompson, he coming off a huge game yesterday against Oklahoma City where he had 19, 12, but he had 4 blocks and 4 steals, so that really bumped his points total. He's still a good value at only 4,900 against Dallas, who just can't rebound at all. He's probably the best rebounder in the NBA. So it's a good spot for him. It's just I wouldn't expect another 50-point outing.
No, I wouldn't either. I think he's safe for a good double-double, and at that price, I'll take it. I don't mind Vucevic. I don't mind Brook Lopez on DK 64 and 6,500, especially where you can roster 2 centers. I think both of those guys are good exposure. Vucevic, we were talking, I was kind of thinking he'd have a little bit higher ownership after the last time out, but I feel like a lot of people might just dive down to Thompson.
Yeah, I think so too. I like Lopez actually on DraftKings, where it's only 6,500. He's averaged about 25 real points per game in his career against Miami, and I mean he doesn't rebound much, but he's a high usage player in this Nets offense, and he's the main scorer right now with Jeremy Lin out.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't mind targeting Hassan Whiteside, especially if he's hobbled. I feel like a guy like Lopez, who's a little bit more mobile, will kind of eat him alive, actually.
Yeah, and he's been hitting threes this year. I don't know where the hell that came from, but he's been hitting them.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Lopez, a good kind of guy for getting into that game and kind of looking at his stack. Maybe Lopez is a good pivot piece.
Yep, and then you touched on Vucevic before. I like him too tonight. It's just it's a tough matchup against Towns, but coming off a huge game against Toronto, he has to be in some consideration for you.
Yeah, and I think he kind of wraps up how I feel about Orlando anyway. It's just more of a GPP. There is a lot of upside with those guys, but definitely just more of a GPP team.
Yep, and then if you hear any news of Whiteside being eliminated or something like that, Willie Reed becomes in play. Revenge game against Brooklyn. They just played last week. But he's only 4K, and if Whiteside is limited and Reed gets 25 minutes, he's a great play at his price.
Yeah, definitely. So keep an eye out for that one. Outside of that, I mean, I'm not really looking at anyone else. I mean, I know Horford's questionable, but even if he comes up, I'm probably going to be off of him tonight.
Yeah, same here. The only thing is, like we said earlier, the pay-up options Towns at 10K. He's got him and Whiteside have the highest upside in the slate, but Towns is a safer play than Whiteside by far.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll probably toss in Drummond into that list as well as being a safer option in that mid-range.
Yep.
So that's going to wrap it up here. Who do you got going here is kind of your highest scoring guy, maybe not named Towns?
Probably LeBron or Thomas. I'm going to go Thomas just to be contrarian.
I like that. I'm going to say Drummond drops another 20-20 on Boston and has himself a night.
I could see that.
So that's going to wrap it up here. Be sure to check out the rest of our NBA content heading up later today.
Yeah, good luck, everyone.